I would like to ask you to take your seat so that we begin with the breakout session A, the use of big data in political communication. So great. Thank you very much for joining us this morning in this second session. And well, so much is already been discussed over the past 1.5 days. Yeah, 1 day, 1.5 days. Little to add, but still, I think that there might be some open questions which haven't been answered in the previous panels. At least I still have a few questions. My name is Andreas Klein. I'm the director of the Political Dialogue Program of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation based in Singapore, one of the 3 regional programs which are of the foundation, on the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, which are based in Singapore. And I'm happy to moderate this panel. We're having great guests here as well. Some of them, if not all, I think Professor Park is new in this group, so to say, but you know some of them from previous panels as well. And well, I'm coming from a generation, before I start introducing you, I'm coming from a generation which is not raised with big data or social media and stuff. So we grew, our generation grew into this, so to say. And I feel a pretty scary experience that when I open, for example, here, my favorite football app, and the first ad which is popping up is like as a question. You don't have an idea how cheap funerals are in Singapore. I mean, it's just how do they know how old I am and how close I am to death? I mean, this is really a scary observation I make. And some of the movies which I grew up in the 90s, when you think of like Tomorrow Never Dies, Minority Report, Total Recall, and some parts of those movies showing the future, not to talk about Back to the Future already is kind of old-fashioned compared to the other movies which I've mentioned, but some of those, of this fiction shown in those movies turns out becoming pretty close to reality. So I would like to discuss that with you guys, and I start with Aika Ray, who is a journalist from the Philippines, working for the Rappler news site. Before? Okay, you can correct me when you're... so who has been working for Rappler, for the news site Rappler, a news site founded by Maria Ressa, the Peace Nobel Prize winner from last year, who is under severe accusation right now and facing punishment in the Philippines. So, of course, I would like to discuss also this issue, how much pressure media experiences in the Philippines. And obviously, it's not only like printed media, but also social media, which is severely under pressure. But you were running a campaign on Safer Roads Philippines, an award-winning campaign. And I would like to ask you to tell us something about this campaign. And I understood you brought a PowerPoint presentation with some video, which I would like you to show us. Thank you very much.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Aika Ray. I'm a journalist from the Philippines. I used to work with Rappler. So one of the most successful projects that I handled in Rappler focused on road safety. So the biggest question back then was, what can we do to prevent road crashes? What can we do to prevent deaths from road crashes? So this is a story on how big data can be used to our collective advantage. So before I start, here's a snapshot of the road crash incidents in the Philippines. So close to 60,000 road crashes happened in the capital region, Metro Manila. It's lower than last year, but 1 in 4 crash incidents result in pedestrian deaths. Nationwide, 9 per 100,000 people die of road crashes. So it is the top 15 cause of death among Filipinos. 5 years ago, the situation was worse. In 2017, Rappler started Safer Roads PH, Safer Roads Philippines. We're hoping to positively influence policy and social change. To do that, we have to look at the data. And the data, we don't have a central database for everything, for vehicular road crashes. Every agency in the Philippines have their own data set. They also have their own reporting processes, and varying elements are being collected. So we wanted to know where road crashes happen, why, and how many people are being affected. But then there's no central database, right? So what we did was to collect all of that, even if they have different elements, they have different processes, even if the data set are not the same, or if you talk about it in data sense, it's not clean. So what we did is to acquire all of those, but we shifted our approach to use national data to look for the areas where there is high road crash deaths per capita. And then we went to the local to get the granular data to dig deeper. So in the process, we created the microsite to publish the anonymized data that we have, that we cleaned, we processed, we analyzed, and we visualized. So as well as the stories that we have published about them. But we know that merely publishing stories may not be enough, or probably was not enough to influence policy and social change. So what we did was we went to the areas that actually have the highest road crash deaths per capita. In that way, data analytics influenced or led to civic engagement activities. So we found out that Cagayan Valley in northern Philippines, 600 kilometers north of Metro Manila, so that's kind of far, is one of the highest, actually the highest. And so we went to Tuguegarao City, the biggest city in the region. So we acquired local data from provincial police, from the traffic agencies, conducted interviews with crash victims, with local officials, with the police. The data that we got, we mapped them to, you see the hotspots over there. That's where most of the deaths happen that come from road traffic crashes. And with that, we published the data story and then presented the data to the stakeholders, local politicians, the local police, the traffic agencies, youth groups, civil society groups. In that forum, the authorities attributed the high deaths, number of crash incidents to a lack of pedestrian lanes, among others, of course. They said that children were also being affected and minor injuries were often unreported. So in that forum, we got commitments from the from the local government to do something about it, but of course, budget will always be a problem. So after the forum, the Highway Patrol Group decided, oh, maybe we could make a social experiment. And in that social experiment, what they did was, since pedestrian lanes are lacking, they tried to do it, they tried to mark the areas in front of schools with chalk. So here's what happened.
Kanina sa labas po, nakita ko yung mga bata, lalo yung mga ibang eskwelahan, halos patintero. May tricycle, iwas yung mga estudyante. Hindi nila kung saan sila. Dapat yan, pedestrian yan. Roads must be given back sa mga pedestrian.
Hindi nga din po nila to minsan nalalaman kung ano pong tawag dito. Kaya Yung mga bata po, parang nagugulat na lang po kung bakit may ganyan sa daan.
Kung hindi tayo nagpintura, hindi nila alam na doon pala dapat tumawid.
Yung ibang mga kababayan natin hindi pa po well aware pagdating sa road safety at yung mga signages hindi po sinusunod, hindi po na enforce.
So we published that video online, and then after that, a private citizen reached out to us asking how they could help. How can they help the city government to paint those, to actually paint pedestrian lanes permanently? And so we connected them to the local government. After that, the local government was actually very receptive. They accepted the donation, and then they committed that they will paint. The city government will paint the pedestrian lanes themselves in front of public schools. The private citizen, the paints that were being donated were given to for areas in front of the private schools. And then months after that, months after we went there, every school in the city actually have their own pedestrian lane so that students can actually cross the crosswalks safely. 2 years after that, the Tuguegarao City Council passed their own local road safety ordinance. It's just that we felt that big data, when talking about data stories, it doesn't really end when you publish those stories. It shows that data-driven reporting can actually, if combined with online and on-the-ground community engagement, can lead to positive policy and social change. That's all. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Aika. This example certainly shows how big data can be used in order to, make a situation better or show the problem on the ground and improve the situation on the ground through a proper media campaign using big data and obviously in cooperation with social groups, with local government on the ground. But that is certainly not the reason why Rappler is so much under pressure in the Philippines. So I really would like to ask you whether you outline a bit the problems Rappler also having and how the news which you are offering are obviously causing problems to the government, to politicians in general, but especially also causing problems to journalists who are dedicated to distributing news in the Philippines.
So in the past years, we've been using data to inform our stories, right? And in the process, we've also seen that data can actually be used against journalists. And this is one way where that's just how data is being used against us, right? So it's kind of, how do I say it? Data is being used to not only, data can be used for good such as that, but can also be used to when there are certain intentions that aren't really good. And in one way, data is now being used to malign fact checkers. So we're seeing that in, this is our experience. This is our experience. We were able to use, we were able to get a lot of attacks on social media, and we have a team in Rappler that analyzed that and saw a lot of actors behind those. And one of those, of course, one of those could be linked to the state. And that is one area where we're being attacked. So you have the legal area, you have the business area, and you also have it on social media.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We come back to that later. We're talking about big data and political communication. And while it was the scandal which finally exposed the dark side of the big data economy, the Cambridge Analytica, some years ago. And what has started with a, let's say, innocent kind of a questionnaire on Facebook with 300,000 Facebook users voluntarily participating in this survey, turned out that 87 million Facebook profiles were used and misused to influence the political campaign of Donald Trump in 2016. So I would like to talk with Kapil Parmar about big data use in political communication in India. And Kapil is the national head of social media and IT of the world's largest political youth organization of BJP in India, having over 100 million members. Just to give you a comparison, the Jung Union in Germany, which is the biggest political youth organization in Europe, has around about 100,000 members, making it the biggest youth organization in Europe. And we've already heard in previous debates from Charu Braja on how BJP, but also other political parties in India were using big data in the political communication. So I would like to ask you, knowing of Cambridge Analytica and the Trump campaign, on how that impacted BJP's campaign, and especially in terms of like the responsibility which coming from having obviously access to this big data in India by law, and how to use it in a responsible manner in political campaigns in India.
Thank you very much. Like when Cambridge Analytica's thing came out in India, we knew that the other party has been using it. And once it came out, then we understood that how the things has been done and how suddenly the fake news and everything has increased. But we had a very good organizational setup, which is at all the levels. Like we have similar setup for social media also, like we have for our party. Like we have national heads, then we have state heads, then we have district level heads, and there are smaller units which are blocks or mandals. There also we have heads, and all the heads have their own teams. So when we got to know about it, we formulated a strategy how to tackle it, and we started educating our people that how to deal with the fake news, how to verify what is fake and what is not, how to educate people, and how to counter it. It's still difficult to counter fake news because the speed of information travel has increased a lot. It still takes some time, and before you have corrected it, it still uh, inflicts some damage on whatever the fake news is about. But cause of our strong organizational structure, we were able to deal with it.
Just to give you an idea from talking about like the practical implementation of big data use and responsible use, as it was previously also mentioned that India is in a constant election process, from local to a national level. So how big is an organization, like a department in the BJP youth organization or BJP mother party, in using big data, informing, communicating through social media?
So BJP has been a very, I would say, early adopter of technology, and we have been using technology when many parties, even in the developed world, they were not using the technology as we have been using. And right now, if you see, we have digitalized most of our workers' data, and that is huge. Like, we have 180 million members in the party. But there are portals wherein I have my friends sitting over here, Rohit Chahal and all. They have been working on this, and we continuously keep on talking to our state presidents, their teams, and if I'm not mistaken, Saral is the portal. So we have a portal which is named as Saral. In that portal, every member has to put in their data, and there are many, many parameters. Like, I'll take an example of the state of Himachal Pradesh, from where I come in. We have units wherein people go and vote. We call them booths, polling booths. So for every booth, we have one booth, 20 youth. Like, we have 20 people who have been identified at every booth. And for all those people, the 20 people, there are 28 different sets of parameters that we take digitally. Like what kind of vehicle they own, what kind of education they have, what is their family background, and what they have studied. We have 28 kinds of metrics that we have captured. So wherein, whenever we require anything, we use this data with certain tools that we have developed. And for that particular specific need, we can pinpoint who is the right person to do that. Recently, we made a world record in blood donation. And again, Rohit Chahalji is sitting here. He has been leading that for the youth wing. And more than 100,000 blood units were donated in a single day. Youth wing was working for it with a few other organizations, but we made a world record wherein we collected more than 100,000 blood units in a single day on the birthday of our Honorable President Prime Minister Modi. And you would be astonished to know that there were more people who were willing to donate blood, but we had like the capacity of the blood banks were over. So then we made a registration process which was again online, and wherein all the details of the people who are willing to donate blood, they were taken. And now the youth wing has a huge database wherein for every location we have people who are willing to donate blood. So we can directly, whenever there is a need of anything like blood or anything, like during Corona time, my friend Charu Pragya is sitting here. She has been a warrior, COVID warrior, well renowned. If you go and search online, you'll find she has been doing a lot of work. So even during that time, whenever any request came to her, she used this system that we have to get the help delivered throughout the country. So this is how we have been using big data, not just to get votes, because our party's ideology is that we are not here to get votes. Votes are just for elections. After that, for 5 years, you have to deliver something else. You have to cater to your citizens. So we are not using data just for, I'll speak for it when you'll give me time. We are not just using data to gather votes. We are using it for a larger purpose, because if you'll deliver the larger purpose, then you'll keep on getting votes for years and years.
Stefan, I'm just thinking about how that would work in Germany, actually. Where we already have problems in getting population getting vaccinated. And just to give like a quick anecdote of like data protection in Germany, I'm in the parents' board of the German school here in Singapore. And just to try to get the email addresses of the parents which I'm representing is a big deal. The school is not allowed to give me those emails. I have to ask basically every parent to get their data, their email addresses. Coming to Germany, first question: how does that sound to you, Stefan, who has a career of 20 years, career and experience of 20 years in the Christian Democratic Union in Germany, currently the CEO, like general manager of the CDU of the, there's a kind of a competition. Are we the biggest or second biggest party? I think as a Union, we are bigger than the Social Democratic Party in Germany, but at least with the biggest youth organization, political youth organization in Germany still. And second question is, as we are the same generation, we grew up with the door-to-door campaigns. And basically that is how we, back before social media, collected big data in a way to get to know our voters better, and I mean to target our voters in like streets, districts, and so on and so forth. I would be interested. Does that still play a role, or is that the personal exchange with your voter on the doorsteps? As I remember, just recently there has been very successful campaigns of the CDU in Schleswig-Holstein, where that obviously still played a role, that the prime minister candidate, and he won the election of the CDU, was looking for like personal contact with his voters. Of course, we are of a relatively small state with 2-point-something million inhabitants, but still, so does that still play a role, Stefan? Is it still appreciated by the voters and the electorate to have this personal contact with the candidates and the major candidates, so to say?
Yeah. I will try to give a short overview. First, I have a question. Are you allowed to use these 100,000 addresses from the blood donations for your party work? Because you said you have to deliver in these 5 years between the elections something else and get votes, you can use it.
Yeah, this data is strictly kept with the party. It's not shared with anyone else. But like if we have collected data for blood donation, we'll use that data strictly for blood donation. We'll not run other campaigns on that.
So that's similar to the rules in Germany and in Europe. To give you an idea about the situation, we have this for a few years now, the General Data Protection Law in Europe. And it's actually it's based on the old German data protection law that was transferred for EU regulation. Of course, you can copy German ideas, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea in every case. This is a case where I would say that is going a bit too far, because one point of this regulation is that the use of personal data for political communication is forbidden. Point. And then there are a few exceptions from this rule. And one exception is the consent of the people to use the data, but these consent have to be specific. So if we have the consent of the people about a newsletter about economic issues, we can send them the newsletter about economics, but we are not allowed to invite them for a party rally. So that is the ground on which we have to come to an idea of big data, because we have to do this specific targeting simply for two reasons. The first reason is we don't have the resources to address our topics to every voter in Germany. And on the other hand, it wouldn't be a good idea to address every possible voter in Germany. We have 80 million inhabitants. We need, as CDU, around about 17 million votes. But if we send our our issues to everyone, we also would mobilize voters of the Greens and the Social Democrats, but we aren't interested in. So the question we had was, here's this general data protection regulation, and here's our aim to get close to the people that tend to vote CDU. And how can we match this? And the solution is that we don't targeting persons, we're targeting small group of persons. Because there's the possibility in this general data protection law that you can focus on a group of 6 households. And you all know from your countries that neighborhoods tend to be similar, or if not equal, when it comes to income, which cars are driven there, and also about the political mindset. And that's a solution we found and established data work that is focusing on these 6 households panels. No, panel is not the right word, groups. And we started with our membership. So you can work with the data of your membership quite easier than with external voter data, and compared the positions of our members with the results of the CDU votes in constituencies, and find out where our voters located. And when we established this database and over several years and over several campaigns, we now have a map of Germany where we can relatively precise say that it's a good idea to walk in this street to do door-to-door canvassing, and not the street right or left of this street. Well, to give you the idea how we work. And on this base, the door-to-door campaigning is working still, and is a good campaigning tool for the German society. Yesterday we were talking about campaigning in India when it comes to, we have to address the elderly voters. You are using Facebook because of the demographic of your society. When we are targeting for our elderly voters, we have to send not emails, but post mailings, or have to do this door-to-door canvassing. So it's still an important part of our campaigning.
And how do you update this data, so to say, in a period between the elections? I mean, of course, you have after every election you have the results, and you can see whether those numbers are still accurate or not. And of course, not so much the mindset of the people, or let's say the social structure of the people in a certain district might change within 4 years or 5 years period of time, but interests, topics change, and topics change their mindset, so to say.
Yes, that's right. So the first idea was that we will use the door-to-door canvassing to collect new data every 5 years in general elections, or every 4 years in general elections, or every 5 years in state levels. That didn't work that well, because the volunteers that are going from door to door are there to give the themes and topics of and the messages of the party, but are only to a small extent willing to collect the data if this guy at the door was positive for the CDU or not. And the solution we had for this was using surveys that we are doing or others are doing about, for example, topics and the relevance of topics, and also the, we say, Kompetenzzuschreibung in German, also how the people think
Competencies.
Yeah, of the CDU. And for example, in Germany, it's a Civey startup that is selling surveys to people who want to ask something, and presenting these surveys on different newspaper online pages. And that's very easy to get in a small amount of time an idea where And that's the key. It's the localization of the people. And then thinking if there's one talking, thinking about health issues in this area, especially the question how to deal with elderly people, and you look on open source data about the neighborhood and see, well, it's inhabitants are 67 or 70 years and older, it's very easy to think that there's a link between these issues and to target these people with health issues and caring about elderly people. So that's the way we are updating these data.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Let's turn to Korea. Professor Dr. Han-Woo Park. Dr. Han-Woo Park is... I thought you want to grab my microphone. Okay. Is a professor and the head of a research lab called Big Local Big Pulse at Jeongnam University in South Korea. He's a founder of Cyber Emotions Research Institute and established the World Association for Triple Helix and Future Strategy Studies. From how much I'm fighting with the vocabulary here, you see how little I know anything about what this, your institutes are talking about. But I've read that in South Korea has the third highest rate of active social media use. 85% of South Koreans use social media. And Korea has its own, I mean, it's a country of how many million? Like,
we are the 50 million.
50 million. But it has its own social media universe with Kakao Talk, Naver, Cyworld, and those, I mean, local, national social media enterprises are fighting and competing with global players like Facebook and Google, which I find quite impressive. So I would be very interested in how much South Koreans are willingly providing data voluntarily to those local, Korean-based enterprises.
Yeah, so you are asking about like the how willingly Korean people, they are giving their data away, to the like conglomerate or the like a portal site. But it's similar to the global case. Just like the once you agree with the terms of the use, and then it's no longer your data. Your data becomes to the site content data. So, he mentioned about the general, data regulation, but it's the same with Korea. But so, doesn't matter with any, different case. So once you press the button, terms of use, and it's your data goes to the data repository of the portals, search engines, social medias. So that's all I can say at the moment.
Yeah.
And since I'm only academician in this panel, that is why I think they are putting me in the last speaker here, because I need to give you some recent research about the presidential election. So can I go through my research? So I like to discuss the analysis my research team has conducted using the social big data from the YouTube and Google Trend on the recent, the most recent presidential elections. Okay. So let me. Okay, here. So before moving on to the study of the presidential elections, I first like to provide a very condensed overview of the intellectual foundation of big data. At Nature, you might know about the Nature, the most prestigious scientific publication. Nature, they released a special issue, the July of the 2021, and they refer the current era, computational social science instead of the big data. But the thing we really want to talk about is the measurement, which is the core thing of the traditional research methodology that were taught in the schools before big data came along. So how to make a scientifically valid measurement of social phenomena using the large data set? So it's increasingly feasible for us to completely perceive and comprehend the working of the social systems. So measurement is everything, So measurement actually comes before data. So big data is distinguishes in online communication by the process of the attention, reaction, expression, participation, as you can see, which are abbreviated as the M4. And that is my theory, and then this has been applied to the various cases. So let me provide the key aspect of the South Korea's latest presidential elections. So first of all, political polarization between the conservative and progressive camps, and also gender discrepancy between men and women, particularly in their 20s. And then there are significant political difference based upon regionalism. Regionalism is a very strong factor in South Korean politics. An overheated housing market, and then lack of the high quality jobs, and to be frankly, the essence of the public campaign based upon public policies. So there is no public policy based campaigns this election. So I like to introduce two recent studies very briefly, 5 minutes per each. Okay? So the one is about the Google Trend, the other is about the YouTube, social media. So research question for the Google Trend, like is politics as usual, implying that social media world isn't all different from the the physical world. As they mentioned, door-to-door campaign can be converted to the online world. Okay. So previously, comparing candidate names was achieved by evaluating the absolute numbers of Google Trend hit count. This is the typical, actual exercise. But this study actually, on the other hand, employed Google Trend to assess the search intensity of the keyword, each candidate and keyword into each region, each province from the perspective of network. But as you can see this slide, you might think the search engine or the portal site, can influence election outcomes, even manipulate. But this is the outside of the scope of my research. So let me go through another slide. Okay, this is the election outcome, and then as you can see, the red person is the actual opposition party, and then conservative party, and then the blue is the progressive party, and then ruling party. And then the red candidate, actually the conservative candidate, he narrowly defeated the blue and progressive parties. And then, as you can see, there are the regional dividedism. So we collected the Google Trend data before the election, and then we compared Google Trend data, actual vote after election, and then we computed actual voting data in a similar manner to the Google Trend. So according to each province. So and then correlation was computed for statistical purpose. So as you can see, we have the significant correlations. This might not sound nothing for you, but scientifically this is very important. So both candidates had the higher correlation between the Google Trend and then actual vote, and conservative candidate a little bit higher than progressive candidates in terms of Google Trend. And besides this, we analyzed the specific keyword, and then also other candidate names, And then we, network visualized. So here is illustration of two motor network visualizations. So we employed several network statistics. And then before the election, just one day before the election, I predicted, actually my team predicted, a conservative candidate will be little bit, better than, progressive candidate who stood in the ruling party. And then, we actually got the conservative candidate elected. So Google Trend was successful in predicting the most recent, presidential election in Korea using the different approach. What kind of a different approach? The measurement was different from the typical approach. Okay. Let me go to the YouTube study very briefly, just 3 minutes. There are 6 social network type online, like the polarized crowd, and then polarized crowd, and then they don't talk, each other, and then tight crowd, and then these brand clusters, and then these community clusters, and then this the in support network, and this is the broadcasting network, and this is the in support network. So there are 6 types of social network online, but theoretically, both butterfly-shaped polarized network and then this dense network, tight crowd network, are unable to be scaled and are less effective than cluster network in mobilizing people with varying political orientations and swing voters during the political campaigns. So my team has been analyzing the flow and content of open communication regarding the information that social media users obtain and from whom they get it as elections are currently taking place. So we did several studies in the past, and then we predicted successfully the outcome of the election based upon this network type and the network configurations. For example, here, as you can see, community clusters. This is a tight crowd. So community clusters, were successful in winning the elections. And this is also different elections. This is a polarized clusters. You cannot win your election using the polarized clusters. And this is a tight crowd, and tight crowd and community clusters. And then this person also won the elections. Okay, for this election also we analyzed the YouTube channels, and then we analyzed the comment networks. Okay, so what kind of role does YouTube play, in particular in the process of dividing voters into the like-minded peoples? I'm going to skip this because you are not interested in the research. Yeah, okay, I'm going to skip. Okay, so the network visualizations. So the larger the point is the more, active in terms of the in degree. In degree means, the more popular people receive the comment. And then more red means, high out degree. High out degree means the more active in terms of the sending the comment. So you receive a comment or you are sending the comment is different because of the directions, right? And this is the commentary network from the progressive candidate from the YouTube. As you can see, this is a tight crowd. And this is the commentary network from the conservative candidate. As you can see, is the community clusters. So progressive candidates had more collective than the conservative candidate, and more communal than the conservative candidate. We actually measured several network metrics, and then we confirmed, the conservative candidate has the sparse network, However, there are great potential for the random compensation between users in conservative candidate. So conservative network has a far shorter distance than the progressive candidate. As a result, the conservative candidate is closer to the users or to the voters. So we calculate this, and then you can compare direct. You can make direct match. This is the tight crowd, get tight crowd, and then community clusters. Community clusters. So I also, we also analyzed the linguistic diversity. What kind of the languages and supporters and commenters they used. We call it this semantic network. So as you can see, the number of comments are more or less the same between two candidates, but number of unique words very different. Okay, so what does it mean this? In terms of the number of original words expressed by the conservative candidate camp is more connective and then diverse. And then, conservative candidates and commentators are more expressive than the counterpartner when it comes to the wide variety of languages. Okay? So, does not matter who used frequently to support their supporting candidate. What matters is the diversity of language. Okay, and what's interesting here, we traced who are commenting both candidates. So some internet users, social media users, they are commenting conservative candidate and at the same time the progressive candidate. We found one particular user here because he or she was really active in the progressive camp here, okay, and then also active in the conservative candidate here. So we looked at their profile, public profile. So we can go to his or her YouTube channels and then found out the person was believed to be a progressive, and then I don't know what kind of the role the person is doing. But the person was very favorable to the progressive, but was adverse to the conservative. So these are the two recent studies, based upon the big data. And thank you.
No, thank you very much, Professor Park. That gives us, I think, lots of food for thought. And I would like to invite the audience as well to raise some questions to our panelists. There any? Please, there's a microphone in there. 1, 2, 3.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dwight De Leon from Rappler in the Philippines. My question is to Dr. Han. You mentioned earlier about your study on Google Trends, and it was really an interesting conversation also in the Philippines. A few months ago, in the run-up to our elections, President Marcos was leading opinion polls prior to the elections, but his rival, now defeated Vice President Leni Robredo, was the one leading in Google Trends. And the discussion back then was that supporters of the Robredo camp, or meaning the rival of Marcos, believe that the numbers in Google Trends say something, and they believed in that. And then when the polls, the election day came, some, or if not many, were surprised that Robredo lost by a landslide in that election, and the opinion polls, it was the opinion polls that closely showed what the election day results were like. So my question is, how should the public and also the media treat Google Trends results in future elections? Because I think this is going to be an important conversation along the way. Should we not look at the numbers at surface level? Thank you.
Thank you. We take 3 questions, please. Yeah, Simon.
Hi, it's Simon from the Liberal Party of Australia. I think in recent years have gotten better at using data. We've done quite a lot of work to develop our voter database, which has information on every elector in the country. We've gotten better at collecting the data to input into that. And the last couple of elections, we've tried to, I guess, model the population so we can identify which 15% of voters we really want to communicate to. The 2019 election, we identified 3 groups that we thought would be very responsive to arguments on tax changes that our opponents wanted to bring in. In the most recent election, we identified probably about 15% of the population that deep down wanted to keep us in government, but were thinking of defecting for various reasons. We broke that up into 6 segments depending on types of demographics and reasons for doing it and so forth. My question is, we're now looking to sort of take that to the next level, and literally today I'm just sort of finalising a tender document for a data analyst, scientist to sort of help us identify new data sources and model that, statistically model that, so we can prepare for the next election, come up with even sharper, better segments. If we're looking for a partner to do that with us, a data scientist, a consultant, what are we looking for? Are we looking for a big data house or someone who's nimble and, you know, sort of academically inclined? And what sort of questions and attributes should we be looking at? You know, given we don't have the in-house expertise, we want someone outside. Who are we looking for? What are we asking? And can you give us some tips so we can find the best data scientists to help us do that task going forward?
Thank you, Simon. And yeah.
So as we know that big data is about volume, velocity and variety. The question is about veracity, that how insightful we can use this data and what should be the quality of data. Let me give you an example of Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP in India. BJP, as far as technology is concerned, BJP is far ahead from other political parties. In 2004, we used audio recording to reach out our voters. And when 2014 government was formed, so membership drive was conducted and 180 million people registered through missed call. And party reached out through contact program. And in 2019 elections, and here comes the veracity thing, and I want to know about the other examples from other countries. So what we did means we used those data for beneficiaries, means to contact beneficiaries of government policies. And we try to reach out 300 million beneficiaries of different government policies. And that was the reason that BJP got more seats than the last election. So what my question here is that how to use this big data to benefit the common voters, those who have voted for you. Means we have Indian examples. What are the examples from other country? Means, and there are also third parties like Varaha and Association of Billion Minds. With the help of these 2 organizations, BJP is working more on data analytics. So examples from other countries, how to make it more veracity of these big data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In order to have a second round of questions, we start with Professor Park and then short and crispy so that we can get a second round.
Yeah, thank you for your response. And the first respondent actually knows very well about the Korean politics. But as you can see here, using the Google Trend and then comparing 2 keywords, this makes you confused, or this might lead you to the different conclusions. Based upon the comparison between 2 candidates, the blue and then progressive candidates, generate more interest among publics. But I did not take this approach. I took a different approach, like I used the one by one. So, and then we calculate the metrics using the network method, and then we make conclusions. So, how to use the Google Trend? How to use the Google Trend? Might give you different answers. And can I answer one more? Yeah. And then how to take advantage of the Google Trend. Let's get back to the U.S. elections made by Trump. Trump camp, they check the Google Trend every day. And then, they actually look at the, map, Google Trend map based upon the, the province, and then what kind of the issues popping up per province, and then they change, immediately their, television, advertising campaigns. So, how to take advantage of the Google Trend is, very important. So the matter, what matters is the, the use of the Google Trend, not in simple way, but in a specific way. Okay. And what else can I say?
So Simon, I guess that's the answer to your question. If you need help, there's the expert.
Yeah, that's all I can.
Thank you very much, Professor Park. Stefan first, or? Yeah.
Short to Simon's question, the experience we made is you have to build your own team. We started with asking some German professors about media and the input of media in decision making. It's a special part. And then we had, of course, as a party, many contacts to surveyors and to firms that offer this to us. And in the end, we had a team of 3 people, a data analyst that was losing his job in the in a private company and was looking for a new job, and also a new mission for his life, and that was a very good bargain for us. And then we had a surveyor guy who is working with opinion polls for several years, and the third one was a junior professor that was only as a external guy who gave advice. But these 3 profiles are enough for a big data team for when it comes to the needs of a political party, I think.
Kapil, you want to add something?
Yeah, when I spoke about the, it's not directly related to the questions, but I think you had the doubt that how the data has been used, and it seems, when I speak, it seems very easy that, it's being done very easily, but it wasn't that easy. It didn't exist before 2014. On 26 May 2014, Mr. Narendra Modi took oath as the Prime Minister of India, and he laid the foundation for a new India. And since then, we have been communicating with people through development. So people, every time people see it, they experience it, and then they believe it. So instead of using big data for political communication, we have been using big data for development. And when you deliver development, you directly communicate your thoughts, and you directly set up a contact with the people. Like, I'll just give you the quantum of it. India is about to surpass China's population to become the world's most populous country in 2000. It's expected to cross in 2023. So we have 1.4 billion people. Even in our party, as Swadeshji was saying, we have 100, it was in 2018, I think, 118 million registered members. Now it has increased.
As long as India is growing, the youth organizations are growing as well.
Yes, yes. So it's around, in India, 60 to 65% people are young people. So around, that is the average of people that are in youth organization also. So we have 715 million smartphone users. So just imagine the kind of data that every smartphone user is generating. India has world's cheapest data. Like, every Indian feels it's like a moral obligation to spend, consume 1 GB data every day. Every day you get 1 GB data on your basic plans. So if you do not consume, it will go waste. So every Indian is, they feel it's like a moral responsibility to consume 1 GB, at least 1 GB a day. So that is the kind of data that is the, you'll find people in villages going live on Facebook every day. So this is the kind of data that we are generating. So it wasn't easy, but when Narendra Modi ji came as a Prime Minister, in just 1 year's time, he started Digital India mission. And then we started using big data for development. Like I had few examples that I came with. Like we had Project Insight in 2017, wherein we used big data to analyze companies and taxpayers and everything, and we found that there were more than 5,000 companies which had been deregistered, still they were in existence. So like this, we use data to stop tax evasion. India is currently running world's largest healthcare program, which is funded by government. 500 million people are covered under this thing. So how do we find these people who will get the benefits? So it's coming through big data. When Modi ji became Prime Minister, in India there were no bank accounts of people. So right now I think more than 450 million Jan Dhan accounts have been made. So now when you link the data, you can transfer the money which earlier used to be given to cash or through mediatories. Now it's being given directly to the accounts of people. So everyone is getting whatever they, like subsidies and everything, they are not going through any channel now. They are being directly transferred to the people. And now they can use, like India didn't have gas connections. So 120 million gas connections have been given. More than 30 million houses have been given. This has been made possible because we have the data, we know who requires what and where should we deliver it. So this is how we, because I thought that we just talk about how do we use big data in political communication, but that happens only during elections. Yeah. And as you were rightly saying that India is, some or other election is happening every time in India. So we do not do our strategies and do our things based on elections. Rather, we thought that we should base it on development. People will experience it, people will see it, and they will believe it. And when elections come, like in 2019 when election came, we had the data of these beneficiaries.
Thank you very much, Kabil. Yeah. Let's get the word back to Aika.
Yeah. So for the third question, someone was asking about veracity. I think we also have to think about how do we collect or how do we acquire the data? Because when you're talking about veracity, of course, you have to go back to the source of the data that you've collected. If it's internal, then that's good. But if it's internal, how did you craft the questions? What were the variables that you needed to have? So those are the things that you have to think about when you're thinking about veracity of the data. Also, when you're looking at that, of course, it's important to look at the clusters. It's similar to what we did with road safety. So we have that big data set, unclean, and then we process it, right? But we thought that, of course, there has to be areas where we saw clusters or areas depending on the variables that we're looking at. And those variables actually helped us find that area where we went to for the forum. I guess it's just worth to say that data projects, when you're talking about big data projects, iteration and experimenting is important. In one way, just an example also, we see iteration and experimentation during the campaign of now President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. In terms of social media, we observed that they tried to adapt their campaigns on social, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. During the course of the campaign, their approach on how they campaign on Twitter didn't really work well. And so towards the end of the campaign, you will see that instead of devoting their resources on Twitter, you'll find them more on Facebook and on YouTube. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aika. I saw before at least two more questions at this side. 1, 2, Dalina, 3. Great.
Yes, thanks for the panel. Jakob Ohmer from the Weizenbaum Institute in Berlin. One comment and one question. The comment is just because there are 500 million smartphone users doesn't mean that the data actually makes it easier to predict anything, right? So just to kind of like say more data is not necessarily better. Mostly we know it's actually complicating things. And my question is, we've seen 3 different types of using big data, predicting election outcomes in academia, mobilizing people, and for citizen projects. And there are all good reasons to do this. My question to the panel is there anything you wouldn't do with big data if you had the access to it?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Muqtadir. I'm from Bangladesh. So my question to the Kapil about the big tech companies are also working globally, and how there is an allegation. A lot of time we have heard that the BJP using this its influence over the big techs to gather or manipulate the opinion. How real the information is, and do we get information from big techs to manipulate the opinion? And sometimes big data, in many cases, when it is stored by the political party, how do you protect its neutrality, and how the digital rights are being protected when used stored by the political, with the person who has a political agenda, even for the people, maybe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last question.
So my question is in the same direction of the previous two, and I'm wondering how we can strike the balance between, on the one hand, using the data effectively, but on the other hand, also making sure that private and individual data is protected. And that goes for political election campaigning, but also for, tracking that we had in the COVID-19 pandemic, where there were also different versions in different parts of the world, and some were more effective than others. Thank you.
So maybe we start now with Aika. Whatever question you feel comfortable answering. Beginning with the question, what wouldn't you do with big data, basically?
What I wouldn't do? Well, when you have a lot of data, like big data, we know that having more data can actually allow people to find out who an individual person is, like everything. Even if it's anonymized, if you have access to advanced analytics, they will be able to look for you or maybe track you down if they have bad intentions. So I guess what I wouldn't do is really anything that infringes on privacy.
But also referring to the other question as well.
I will try so. But of course, that's an important question. It's easy to answer for the CDU in Germany and for almost every other party in Germany, maybe except the Alternative für Deutschland. And that is that the people in Germany are so positive and focused on the protection of the personal data. It's not a good idea for political parties to go to the end of the allowed road to work with personal data. I mentioned these 6 households. That's a group we are working with. Allowed by GDPR is 4 households. So we decided at the CDU, if this is a border for the data protection line, and on this side is forbidden, and on this side everything is allowed, we are moving at least to this point, and not to the end of this road. So the question, what won't you do, is not one that is very important for the daily doing, because we are dealing with statistical data, not with personal data, for the most in the most cases of campaigning. Of course, there is personal data if the people are subscribing for newsletters and so on. That's other question, because that is not going into the data analysis we are doing. And the last question about tracking and so on, it might be a question in other parts of the world, but in Germany it's not only strictly regulated, but also in the question of devices and, of course, of tools, that there is no connection between the party work and the government work. So there's also a border for the use of data.
Thank you. Kabir.
You rightly said that. I'm audible. You rightly said that you can't depend on the data, and that is what we have been doing. These 180 million people, they are not just using the data. They are using data, and we are men on ground. Like you were saying that you had people going and knocking the doors. We are still knocking the doors. And our 180 million, we call them Karyakartas, workers, they have data, but they still go to each and every door. I come from Himachal, Hamirpur, and even if a person is minister in the central government, when election comes, he has to go and knock all the doors. So it's not that we are blindly trusting the data. Data has to be used in combination with whatever insights and whatever things you have on ground. So this is the way we are using it. You said that like 750 million smartphone users. I didn't say that it's a good thing, but I was just trying to tell you how difficult was it, because this is the kind of data that we are having. Coming back to the privacy and security of the data, definitely we strictly, as I already told you, that if we have collected the data for blood donation, then we'll use it for blood donation only. The people who are our own Karyakartas, they have, like he said, that they had consented to the terms and conditions of the party, how party will use the data. We have been using it in that manner. Some gentlemen from here told that there are allegations that BJP has been using data from companies and all. When you do things right, there are people who wonder how they are able to do it. Like I told you, after 2014, India has changed like anything. And the people who were there before 2014, they were not able to do it. And suddenly they are surprised, how are they doing it? And then they think about themselves that, how could we have done it? And then they come up with the theories that they might have used. But it's not the case. As I told you, the data, we have 180 million our own members, and this was in 2018. So we have on-ground people, and as I told you, we are delivering and communicating through development. We deliver things, and then when elections come, our people go and meet each and every beneficiary. And we remind them that this house, you have been delivered under this Yojana. Yojana is a scheme. You have got this gas connection under this. So we go and meet each and every person. And once they are reminded that these things have been delivered through these schemes, and these schemes have been possible because BJP is in power, so that is enough for us. And other things, allegations and other campaigns and everything, which goes on as usual, like allegations will come and go, but we do not need, as he rightly said, there's a lot of data. We ourselves generate a lot of data. Our workers are 24/7 on the ground. Every day we are doing something or other. So we have our own data, which is not private data. Like if a person is going to a booth, he has a knowledge that what kind of problems, what kind of things these people have. And then we communicate to the person at that particular level. We have people at the lowest level, like booth level, at village level. We just communicate to those people. Those people go and communicate it to the people that these are the things that has been done by the government. So it's as simple as that. I don't think if you have to do things based on data, you need to infringe on privacy or anything. And there's a generic thing which I always say. When you are carrying this device in your phone with you, you never know you are being tracked or you're not being tracked. Someone might be listening to you right now also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Park, famous last words.
Yeah. The monitor says the kindly elaborate, please. So I have to very brief. In my opinion, we have to actually avoid binary or the dichotomous approach between protection and utilizations. Yesterday, I mentioned that we are actually having a changing landscape from E-democracy to the C-democracy. C stands for the crypto. So crypto-based Web3 technology, everybody is voluntarily giving away their data. And then we call it KYC. KYC stands for Know Your Customers. So, we do not have to distinguish production and utilizations. People, as long as they get paid, and then they are willing, to, provide their own data. So Web3-based technology, the change the use of the big data. For example, recently, Google search engine let people retrieve, Ethereum account. So, every candidate has like an Ethereum account, and then the account will be reviewed through the search engine. Okay, and this is a different situation from Web 2.0 technologies. So that is why we have to think a little bit more than social media, think a little bit more than current technologies in terms of the use of big data in political communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Park. It says here kindly wrap up, please. Before it turns it wrap up, I want to close this panel with a big round of applause for our panelists, please. I think we can agree that data is the most valuable asset on Earth, and that we are just at the beginning of a discussion to come, big discussion to come. So I understand this as also an initiative for the Konrad Adenauer Foundation to further work on this topic. Now I have a last announcement to make. We will recommence at 2 p.m., 1 hour and 15 minutes, in 2 separate breakout rooms here and the next door. And this room will be hosting the session on the credibility crisis, restoring trust in media institutions, moderated by my colleague Alina Reis. And next door in room B will be hosted the session on reframing the narrative on environmental communication, moderated by Katrina Domingo. The conference hashtag is #ACPC22. Thank you and see you at 2 p.m.